They laughed the first time she opened her mouth. The teacher rolled her eyes, the classroom whispered, and one brave girl stood there with nothing but a worn notebook and a dream no one believed in. But what they didn't know was that the same voice they mocked inside that school would one day be broadcast to the entire world. This is the story of Naomi Ellis, the young black girl they tried to silence, until her words became thunder. Naomi Ellis, 16 years old, quiet eyes behind second-hand glasses, walked the same crowded halls every morning at Lincoln High. She was known as the janitor's niece, the choir girl, the poetry kid, nicknames that felt like small boxes other people built to keep her in. Her locker was decorated with one photo, her late mother sitting at a typewriter decades ago. Naomi stared at it every morning and whispered, "I'll try to finish one of your lines today, Mama." That morning, the air inside room 204 smelled faintly of dry erase markers and cheap perfume. The board held the words, "Write about your dream." Mrs. Davenport, who always looked like she was grading even people's smiles, clapped her hands sharply. "All right, class," she said. "Who's brave enough to share?" Most students yawned or stared at their phones. Naomi squeezed her notebook and felt her heartbeat in her fingers. Her mother's voice seemed to echo from memory. "Words are doors, baby. The moment you open one, you step somewhere big." So she stood up. "I wrote mine as a poem," she said softly. The room chuckled. Someone muttered, "Of course she did." Mrs. Davenport sighed. "A poem, huh? You can read it." "But quickly, please." Naomi swallowed, opened the notebook, and began. Her first lines shook like a faulty speaker, timid and unsure. But then the rhythm found her, steady, truthful, rising like a tide. She spoke of growing up behind metal detectors that clicked like clocks counting down for someone else's future, of being seen yet unseen, of having dreams so loud they echoed through tiny apartments at midnight. Her words turned fragile air into something alive. When she finished, silence stretched across the room. For a heartbeat, she thought, maybe she'd reach them. Then came a snort of laughter from the back row. "Dramatic much?" Mrs. Davenport smiled like she was cutting a thread. "Well, that was expressive, Naomi. But remember, poetry's a fun hobby, not really a career path." The class laughed again. Desks rattled. Naomi's cheeks burned. She sat down, folded the notebook shut, and repeated inside her head, "It's just words. They can't break me." Still, somewhere deep, something cracked. Lunch hour arrived with the scent of fries, old ketchup, and gossip. Naomi sat at the far end of the cafeteria. Same table every day where no one bothered to sit unless the others were full. Her tray steamed, but she couldn't eat. Across the room, Madison Cole, the kind of girl teachers adored and social media copied, reenacted Naomi's poem in a mock-dramatic voice. Her friends erupted in laughter. Every giggle felt like a pin drop into Naomi's chest. "Hey," a voice broke through her storm of thoughts. It was Chance Miles, her only real friend, hoodie half-zipped, guitar pick hanging from his neck. "Ignore them," he said, sliding beside her. "They laugh because they don't get it," Naomi exhaled. "Maybe it didn't sound how it did in my head." Chance shook his. "Nah, it sounded real. Made my arm hair stand." He nudged the notebook peeking from her bag. "Don't let 'em take that from you." She smiled a little, whisper small. "You think they'll ever take it seriously?" "One day," he said. "But you'll probably have to make 'em." 2 weeks later, bright yellow flyers covered the hallway. Lincoln High Annual Speech and Writing Showcase. Saturday night, Naomi's stomach fluttered. Davenport had mentioned she'd nominate top essays. Maybe, despite everything, her poem would be chosen. The next afternoon, she found the printed list taped to the notice board, names in neat rows. Her eyes scanned for Ellis, Naomi, and stopped. The name was there, but crossed out with a thick red line. Beside it, written in blue pen, Madison Cole. Naomi froze, heart pounding against her ribs. Chance, reading over her shoulder, muttered, They replaced you. What? So Madison can read her basic Google poem? Naomi tore the edge of her notebook until the paper screamed. Guess my dream wasn't realistic enough, she said softly. That night at home, over the smell of collard greens and cornbread, she laid the paper in front of Grandma June. Her grandmother adjusted her glasses and stared. They crossed you out? Yes, ma'am. June set down her fork slowly. Baby, I taught in schools 32 years. I've seen names erased for less. But you know what they can't cross out? Naomi frowned. What? The truth inside you. Now you go remind them it's permanent ink. Naomi blinked. You mean? Grandma nodded once. You stand on that stage, crossed out name and all. Sometimes, sweetheart, faith looks a lot like disobedience. Saturday night. The auditorium buzzed. Parents fanned themselves with brochures. Stage lights warmed the air to gold. Naomi sat in the back row, notebook clutched in shaking hands. On stage, Madison Cole sparkled, literally, in sequins, as she recited someone else's poem. A safe one about following dreams, Naomi whispered to herself. That's my topic, her stomach twisted. Then, across the aisle, Grandma June caught her eye and mouthed, Go. Naomi felt her pulse drum louder than applause. The next performer froze after tripping on the mic cord. Everyone laughed. The brief chaos gave Naomi her chance. She stood, walked down the center aisle, each footstep heavier than the last. Davenport's face turned pale. Naomi, what are you doing? You're not on this list! Naomi stopped at the stage steps. Then maybe you need a new list. And she walked up, the whispering crowd went dead silent, spotlight on. Dust drifting through golden air, she exhaled and began. I am not noise to be tuned out. I am an echo crawling through walls that forgot to hear. They said dream small in big letters. But my voice will not shrink just to fit fear. Gasps fluttered through the room. Each line came stronger than the last. Her voice, shaky paper before, was a hurricane now. Every sentence dug at something buried in each listener, the feeling of being dismissed, underestimated. She spoke of classrooms that taught limits instead of hope, of teachers who forgot that words can save. And she ended softly. Barely above a whisper, you cannot mute what was born to move mountains. A beat of silence fell like a curtain, then one clap, then another, then the whole room roaring. Camera phones rose. Kids stood. Grandma June wiped tears with her handkerchief, whispering, That's my thunder. Even Davenport's clipboard shook in her hands. Naomi dared a smile through tears of relief. By sunrise, the video was online. Someone titled it, Girl Crashes School Showcase with Poem That Gave Everyone Chills. It hit thousands of views within hours. Naomi didn't check her phone at first. She spent Sunday doing laundry, pretending life hadn't changed. But by Monday, local news vans were outside the school fence. Teachers whispered in the hallways. The principal wanted her, parents' permission for interviews, and when her segment aired that evening, Naomi reading lines, under a TV studio spotlight, the internet exploded again. Talk show producer reached out. America needs to hear you, the email said. 2 weeks later, Naomi stood under professional lights. Makeup team, cue cards, a band warming up. Her heart pounded so hard she almost laughed. The host smiled. Naomi Ellis, 16 years old, whose poem reminded us all what truth sounds like. The music softened. She began to read. Each word landed smoother, richer. Camera bulbs flared, audience eyes shone, and applause arrived before the last line even finished. Back in the teacher's lounge of Lincoln High, Mrs. Davenport dropped the remote. She stared at the screen as Naomi's face filled it, bright, fearless, unstoppable. Her colleagues looked at her but said nothing. For once, Davenport couldn't speak either. When Naomi came home, the front yard fence glittered with colored paper banners. We're proud of you, Naomi! Students cheered from passing cars. Kids from the neighborhood ran up asking for selfies. Naomi thanked them kindly but kept scanning the crowd until she saw Grandma June waiting near the porch. She ran straight into her arms. You proud of me? Grandma? June chuckled through tears. Girl, I was proud the first time you rhymed heart with start. This is just the world saying amen. Naomi laughed into her shoulder. It feels weird being seen. Her grandmother pulled back, cupping her cheek. Then remember what to do with it. Shine the light, don't let it blind you. Days later, after the cameras cooled, Naomi walked back into room 204. Mrs. Davenport was erasing the board when she turned around startled. Oh, Naomi, I saw you on TV. Congratulations, Naomi. Nodded politely. I owe you an apology, the teacher said quietly. I misjudged your work, and maybe you. Naomi took a breath and smiled faintly. You didn't just misjudge me, ma'am. You misjudged poetry. It tells the truth even when you don't allow it time on the stage. Davenport nodded, eyes glistening. You've taught me more in one poem than I've taught in 10 semesters. Naomi appreciated that, but she didn't linger. She had another reading to attend. Months passed. Her poem made it into magazines, online anthologies, even a statewide curriculum. She started workshops for younger kids, teaching them how to turn fear into art. One evening, in a small community center with folding chairs and noisy fans, she looked at a group of wide-eyed children and said, If they tell you your dream's too loud, turn the volume up, because thunder never asked for permission to roll. The kids laughed and tapped notebooks nervously as they began writing, and she felt it, her mother spirit smiling somewhere near the back of the room. People will always try to measure your worth with the smallest ruler they have, the neighborhood you live in, the color of your skin, the accent on your voice. But words don't obey rulers. Words care about truth, and truth belongs to anyone brave enough to speak it. Naomi Ellis didn't just write a poem, she reminded an entire school and maybe a country that greatness begins where permission ends. So if the world tells you to stay quiet, whisper louder, because somewhere right now, someone is waiting to hear thunder. If this story inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that proved we should never underestimate the power of those who have been underestimated.